reiterated the idea of a future meeting between himself, Donald Trump, and Putin in Budapest, which had been expected or indicated previously. So he may also see Orban as strategically useful in that regard. But bearing in mind what we saw in the meeting in terms of Orban just really parroting Russian propaganda lines about the situation in Ukraine and the state of the war, his integrity and reliability as a go-between, I think, could be regarded with a certain degree of scepticism.
The Hungarian Prime Minister, Viktor Orbán, didn't hold back on the war in Ukraine when he met President Trump yesterday.
The only pro-peace government is the United States government and the small Hungary in Europe anyway. All the other governments prefer to continue the war because many of them think that Ukraine can win on the front line, which is a misunderstanding of the situation. So it's a complicated issue. We will discuss it. It requests not just 2 minutes to respond to your question, but rather than our lecture. Sorry, not to continue more.
To both of you.
So you would say that Ukraine cannot win that war?
Miracle can happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, Viktor Orbán has maintained good relations with Russia throughout the war, and Hungary has continued to use Russian oil and gas, something that President Trump has sanctioned other countries for doing. But he's given Hungary a 1-year exemption. Let's find out more from Alexander Faludy, who is a British-Hungarian journalist based in Budapest. Morning to you, Alexander.
Good morning.
So is it clear why Trump has effectively given Hungary a free pass to buy Russian oil?
Well, perhaps have to put this into a certain context, which is that Orban is obviously a very friendly contact for Mr. Trump and is in a certain degree of political trouble here, looking towards the general election that is scheduled for April, because he's had this unexpected rise of an opponent, Peter Magyar, who is well ahead in the polls at the moment, and the sanctions that were indicated could have really plunged the Hungarian economy, which is already struggling and stagnant with a significant cost of living crisis, into a spiral that would have made sure that Orban would not have a chance of winning next year's election. I think that might have been the key consideration for Trump, because he values Orban not only as a model for the sort of liberal policies he wants to pursue in the United States, but also as a useful disruptor inside the EU, which he has his own interests for undermining.
So talk about those common goals, because kind of on the one hand, I appreciate what you're saying about him being a disruptor and that can be useful for Donald Trump. But also Viktor Orbán is quite close to Russia, who at the moment we seem to believe Donald Trump is not very happy with.
Yes, and he, towards the end of the press conference, I think, referenced the potential usefulness of Orban as a bridge to Putin, as somebody who understands him well and is close to him, and reiterated the idea of a future meeting between himself, Donald Trump, and Putin in Budapest, which had been expected or indicated previously. So he may also see Orban as strategically useful in that regard. But bearing in mind what we saw in the meeting in terms of Orban just really parroting Russian propaganda lines about the situation in Ukraine and the state of the war, his integrity and reliability as a go-between, I think, could be regarded with a certain degree of scepticism.
Hungary imports over 80% of its oil from Russia. Does it have other options? I mean, we said there that Donald Trump is giving Hungary a 1-year exemption, so basically for the next year can buy this cheap Russian oil and gas. Then what are its options?
Well, it does already has the capacity certainly already to take more foreign oil. It's only using half of the capacity that it already has to process non-Russian crude. While the rest of the European Union has reduced its reliance on Russian oil, Hungary has increased it from 61% to 86%. There are other options, in particular via shipping of oil to Croatia and distribution through interconnected networks. Now, the Hungarians were, until recently, saying that for all sorts of technical reasons that wouldn't be viable for them or would present difficulties. But yesterday, MOL, the Hungarian state energy company, began to put out noises sort of suggesting that it might be more possible than they'd said. I do think it's interesting that when Orban was speaking with Hungarian journalists after his meeting with Trump, he said that the exemption was ended, whereas we've had a quick pushback from White House officials who've told the Associated Press and AFP that it's strictly for 1 year, which would align with the European Union's existing exemption for Hungary to facilitate adjustment of refinery equipment. But Orban's different line in that meeting, indicating that it was open-ended, might be for domestic consumption, or it might be a slip in terms of indicating that he tends to string this process out further, which would be somewhat characteristic.
Alexander Faludy, thank you so much. He is a British-Hungarian journalist based in Budapest.
Well, let's stay with the actions of President Trump and events in America, because the US Supreme Court has issued an emergency order temporarily allowing the Trump administration to hold back $4 billion worth of funding for food benefits. It would have been used by millions of Americans on low incomes. Because of the ongoing government shutdown, President Trump's team argued they could only afford to partially fund it.
The shutdown has also started to affect airports across the US. Air traffic controllers have been left without pay, resulting in hundreds of flights being cancelled across the country, with fears it could disrupt Thanksgiving at the end of the month. The Federal Aviation Administration ordered airlines to cut 4% of flights at 40 of the nation's busiest airports starting yesterday.
Elsewhere in Trump's America, a judge in Oregon has blocked the president from deploying National Guard troops to Portland. It's because there was no evidence of widespread violence to justify federal intervention. The US District Court judge, who was appointed by President Trump, found protests near Portland's Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) facility were predominantly peaceful.
And former President Joe Biden has responded to Zohran Mamdani's win in the New York mayoral election. He told a crowd in Nebraska Tuesday was a good start. During the address at the Nebraska Democratic Party's annual Ben Nelson Gala, Biden suggested it was a warning to Trump.
We're sending a message. We're sending a message. A message to Trump and to his crowd. And look, folks, I just want you to know, you work for us, Mr. President. We don't work for you. You work for us. Not just billionaires and millionaires. And I mean it sincerely. I'm angry. You work for us.
And the White House has attacked the BBC as a fake news leftist propaganda machine after claims about the editing of a speech by President Trump for an episode of Panorama. It's claimed they made it look like Trump had urged supporters on the day of the January the 6th riots to fight like hell. The president's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, said the incident amounted to purposeful dishonesty. She added she believes the BBC broadcast blatant propaganda and lies about the President of the United States and all that he's doing to make America better and the world a safer place.